Over the years, I've found that when I've met people and told them I'm a journalist, that one of the first questions they ask is, well, how do you find the story? And of course, there's many answers to that question. Sometimes you're working sources, sometimes you're digging through government documents or data. But every once in a while, and actually more often than not, it's just happenstance or luck or being in the right place in the right time. And actually the impetus for this current expanded new documentary that we're doing on Pearl Harbor started with one such example. We were working on a documentary to commemorate the 10th anniversary of September 11th, and I have some family in Hawaii and was out there in the summer before. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to sort of look at Pearl Harbor in relation to September 11th, since it was considered the biggest attack on America since Pearl Harbor. And we ended up doing a piece on that. But as part of this, I went and shot at the Punch Bowl National Cemetery, which is really one of the most moving places I've ever been. Men and women are buried there who have served their country in a whole host of wars and in other sorts of service. And we were there for quite some time, and we were shooting the grave sites and all these other events. But there also are what they call the courtyards of the missing. They're marble walls with name after name after name of people who, as the saying goes, whose final resting place is known only to God. And we were shooting these courtyards, and I turned to one of them, and I noticed on a hibiscus tree, which was at the centerpiece of this courtyard, there was something fluttering in the breeze. And so I walked up, and I got a closer look, and there was a letter, and it was in lamination. And it had a very powerful message, and it read, "Dear Sammy, we're here. It's been 66 years since you were lost. Today is June 10th, 2011, and we are overdue. Love, your family." And with it, there was a little news article that suggested that Sammy was a man by the name of Sam Bowerman, who had been lost at sea in the War in the Pacific in World War II in 1944. And it just started ringing in my mind. I wanted to know, who was this person? What was this story? And when I got back to New York, along with some dedicated staff, we started digging into it. And we found a whole story behind Sam Bowerman and two nephews who never knew him, who had tried to figure out who this man was, and whose journey had taken them to Pearl Harbor and to Punch Bowl.
Dedicate this to the families of Mr. and Mrs. Samuel Bowerman. Letter from the youth camp of the USS Molina. Your son Samuel has been officially classified as missing in action. April 6, 1945.
There you go, Sammy.
It's a great Ohioan.
I think a key component, probably the most key component to a journalist, is to be inquisitive, to want to ask questions and then seek their answers. And I think this is a perfect example. It's a little clue, it's tantalizing. And it's one of those things where the internet itself didn't provide very many clues. I mean, I think now when events happen, they're so documented online that you feel like a couple clicks and you can get it. But this required calling a bunch of different Bowermans in a phone book and realizing it was probably in Ohio and wondering if they were still there and finding one person leading to another. And that's the chain of exploration that I think makes journalism so exciting. I knew that this Sam Bowerman wasn't a name you were going to hear in any history books, but I knew that there was a personal connection, that somebody had been here and had thought enough to put a letter, laminate it, in hopes that other people would see it. And I just realized that from this little inspiration of the Sam Bowerman letter, that there were so many other stories that also could be told, that people hadn't thought about, that hadn't been explored. And as a journalist, you get excited and inspired. I want to know, okay, we were approaching the 70th anniversary of the attack. Where are the survivors? If they were 18, 19, 20 years old, they would be in their late 80s or 90s by now. When I went to Pearl Harbor, I'd seen a lot of Japanese tourists. I wanted to know, what were they thinking? I wanted to know what the locals in Hawaii, what their impression of Pearl Harbor was, how it was being taught. I came back and I talked to Dan, and I thought, how lucky am I to be able to come back and with Dan Rather to tell the story of Pearl Harbor, something he himself remembers as a young boy. I felt a certain responsibility that this is a moment in time that is very precious. That there are still survivors who are around who can make the journey back to Hawaii for the 70th anniversary. To be able to go there with Dan and tell this story of this event and what's come after, I just felt that was very special.
Would all Pearl Harbor survivors please stand as able?